Days 2 and 3 of the NFL draft have officially concluded, and now we have a list of names and know exactly who are going to be our rookie players for the upcoming 2023 season. And in this video, I am going to give you all a review of each of these players, my thoughts, my feelings, and how well I think they will fit into the scheme of our team. And we will get into that right after this.
From the foe, you dig?
Welcome to The Way I See It with Jamario Rashad. This is a Carolina Panthers fan channel. Please do me a favor by hitting the like button, and please make sure you subscribe as I am on my road to 2K, trying to get my channel popping before the season comes in. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get to our new dogs. Now, the first person we have to start with was the second overall, was our second pick that we had, which was our first on day 2. So in the second round, 39th overall, the Carolina Panthers selected Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver from Ole Miss. Now, what is so special about Jonathan Mingo? Before I give you any of his intangibles, before I give you any of his measurables, Jonathan Mingo, in fact, was handpicked and selected by Carolina Panthers legend Steve Smith. And if you were not aware, the Carolina Panthers media team dropped the call from a series of all of the draft picks that they made. When it came to Mingo, our owner David Tepper explained to him that just a few moments before, he had made the call to Steve Smith to ask him who we should pick, and he in fact said Jonathan Mingo, and that was all of the green light that we needed to go ahead and make that pick, man. So before I even get into Jonathan Mingo, I am going to let Steve Smith tell you what he feels about Jonathan Mingo, because he is a legend, a soon-to-be Hall of Famer, and I'm pretty sure he could break it down a little bit better than me. So we're going to listen to Steve Smith, and then I'm going to come back and react. So let's go ahead and listen to Steve Smith.
Jonathan Mingo, 6'2", 220 pounds from Ole Miss, 4'6". This kid can run. He knows how to work. At times, he allows the corner to get his hands on him, but it really doesn't matter because his intermediate route game is extremely high. He's just consistent. Over and over again, continues to make plays. He's a bowling ball. He will run around you. He will run through you. Teams are starting to pick up on him and knowing and understanding that he will bring something to the table that you will not expect. Jonathan Mingo.
All right, and there you have it. That is Panthers legend Steve Smith on our new wide receiver acquisition, Jonathan Mingo. As you heard him mention, he runs a 4.46 in the 40-yard dash, but he also at 6'2" has a 39.5-inch vertical, and he is an absolute beast. He comes from a school that has produced several top-tier NFL wide receivers over the last 4 years, be it DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Elijah Moore, and now Jonathan Mingo. He has been an absolute beast during his time at Ole Miss, but his senior year, which was this most recent year, was when he had his breakout season. After the departure of Elijah Moore, and when Jonathan Mingo had the opportunity to play a full season during his senior year, he had 51 catches for 861 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he was averaging nearly 17 yards per catch, meaning that he was an absolute big play waiting to happen each and every time that the offense decided to throw the ball. He also has familiarity with current Panthers backup quarterback Matt Corral, as he was drafted out of Ole Miss, so he will have a easier transition coming into the team. Although Bryce Young is going to be the quarterback, he does have somebody in the quarterback room that he's comfortable with, a friend per se. I know this is a business, but he does have somebody that is going to help his transition into the NFL be a little bit easier. And when it comes to player comparison, man, just because he comes from that same tree, I know a lot of people may feel it's kind of lazy to give the analysis that, oh, he's like DK or he's like AJ, but in reality, man, he is right smack dab in the middle of those two guys in terms of height, weight, measurables, all of it, he is right there. So if you could look at a player that sits on the spectrum in terms of skill, output, and physicality, right in between AJ Brown and DK Metcalf, that is where I think Jonathan Mingo sits, and I think that means well, and that's going to pay dividends once he gets to the NFL, because we've seen that body type work, we've seen that archetype already be successful within the NFL, and that's something that we're hoping to see Terrace Marshall also break out with this same archetype and build. We're also working to see another player work out with these same measurables. Now, why was he drafted? Of course, he was drafted to be the potential DJ Moore replacement after we traded him in our attempts to go up to get Bryce Young. When they were successful, unfortunately, we lost our number one receiver, and many people's concern was, who exactly is he going to throw to? Like, once we get this quarterback, who exactly is he going to throw to? Well, I believe Jonathan Mingo was pretty much the higher ups. This was their answer to that question. We'll go out, we'll get a big body, skilled guy who is pretty much just a less skilled, larger, more physical DJ Moore, which is something that I really can't argue with. But one thing that I truly do think that this is going to do, as I mentioned Terrace Marshall Jr. a minute ago, I believe this is going to push him in a potential contract year to have a career year and to put up the best stats of his career, as he was a second round pick. This is his third year, meaning he is extension eligible after this year. Although we haven't been extending players early, this does extend Terrace Marshall the opportunity to earn himself some money right here. So hopefully this addition of Jonathan Mingo will help towards the development and pushing of Terrace Marshall at the same time, and hopefully we can see these guys develop together. But overall, I'm very, very satisfied with the addition of Jonathan Mingo. Personally, I would have preferred if we would have selected a pass rusher in this spot, as I did think that Tank Dell was going to be available later on, as he was, and he went to Houston. I think this draft pick could, in my opinion, would have been more well served investing in a pass rusher, but I am satisfied with the addition of Jonathan Mingo. So, man, with that being said, what do you all think about the selection of Jonathan Mingo in the second round, man? And with that being said, we are going to stop right there, and we are going to move into what I'm pretty sure many people had a lot of feelings about, which is our third round pick. So let's go ahead and get to that. With the 80th pick in the third round of the NFL draft, the Carolina Panthers selected DJ Johnson out of Oregon. And when I heard that, I'm pretty sure my timeline, and like plenty of people watching this video were just like,
who the fuck is that guy?
Like, nobody, like who exactly is this? But this is the kicker. If you remember, we did not have the 80th overall pick. We were picking at 93. So we had to trade 93 as well as 132 to move up to get this guy at 80, who is a reach at best. But before I get into anything else, let me first give you the story of this 24-year-old defensive player from Oregon. His story starts out as him being a 4-star recruit that spent 6 years in college. As a true freshman in 2017, he played 8 games for the Miami Hurricanes before transferring to Oregon. He would only play in 1 game in 2018. In 2019, he played his first full season at defensive back before being asked to transition to tight end in 2020, partially due to the emergence of Kayvon Thibodeau on the defensive line. It wasn't until this most recent year in 2022 that he moved back to the defensive side of the ball, and he had a breakout year as a 6th-year senior, taking advantage of the 1-year extra COVID rule, or the extra COVID year that was afforded to all college players over the last couple of years. So with that being said, then we get here DJ Johnson, 6'4", 240 pounds, as I mentioned, from Oregon, defensive end, outside linebacker, edge player is how we're going to categorize him. 24 years old, ran a 4.4 940-yard dash and put up 28 reps on the bench press at the NFL Combine, man. So when I say this guy broke out and had a breakout year, his best year ever, what were those stats like? So as a senior, a sixth-year senior, he had 39 tackles, 6 sacks, and 8.5 tackles for loss. Now, that isn't great. It isn't bad, but it's not something that I thought that the Carolina Panthers would be interested in investing multiple pieces of draft capital into moving up and getting, when we in fact could have just, like I mentioned in the last segment, drafted a pass rusher in the second round when there were still good ones still on the board. We chose to rather go out and reach for DJ Johnson. So how do I feel about this pick overall? I honestly have to say that yes, I am a little bit disappointed, as this just seems like a reach. No, I'm not going to sit up here and lie and say, oh, I've dove into the tape and I've watched all this, that, and the third. But on the things that I have watched, when I have looked at DJ Johnson, when I see his one-on-ones at the East West Shrine Bowl, at the Senior Bowl, whatever the things where he was getting whooped. He was getting his ass whooped by the offensive line, and then he spent 2 years as a tight end before coming back and playing as a 24-year-old and having a somewhat decent season, and then getting him projected into the third round. That just seems a bit fishy to me. And overall, man, when you look, as I mentioned, at the media that the team chose to put out, it seems like, if we look at the rest of the draft, a lot of it, if not, let's say 90+% of our efforts were focused towards the offensive side of the ball and helping out Bryce Young, rightfully so. But with us going out and hiring a defensive coordinator as highly regarded as Ejiro Evero, and word on the street is Tepper is out here paying head coach money for these coordinators, like that's how he's able to pull them away from their teams. This just seems like, there was like, we're going to get you something so you don't feel left out, or just like, here, shut up, take this. Because again, man, me and all of the rest of Panthers Nation, when this pick was announced, was just sitting there like,
who the fuck is that guy?
Because none of us knew. Like, none of us knew. And see, even right now, as much confidence as I say that I do have in this coaching staff, and I do, and this new brass, just as an evaluator with my own 2 eyes, I just don't like this pick personally, and it is what it is. But I could be wrong, man. What do you all think about DJ Johnson? How do you feel about this pick? Do you think that it was a right pick? You've had a couple of days to sit on it. Has it simmered? Is it not as bad as you originally thought? Do you still think it's terrible? Whatever you think, leave your comments down below. And now we are going to get into our next pick that we selected in the 4th round. That being Chandler Zavala, offensive guard from North Carolina State. He was drafted, as I mentioned, in the 4th round, 114th overall. He is 6'4", 240 pounds. Now, offensive linemen do not just have a lot of stats that you can go look up, and just because they don't score, they don't get tackles. Their job is to protect, and that does not show up on the stat sheet. But from what I can see and what I've looked into and what I've heard about Zavala, he is potentially a significant upgrade at either one of our guard positions. Now, as I mentioned, I do not know too much about offensive line, but I do know that one thing that they thrive off of is chemistry. A lot, or most, or all of the best offensive lines in the NFL are just have incredible chemistry. When it comes down to the Philadelphia Eagles currently, the Cowboys of a few years ago, being on the same page, knowing what the man next to you is going to be able to do, leads to effective offensive line play. Now, why do I bring that up? As I mentioned, he comes from NC State. Who else on our offensive line comes from NC State? The other person would be our star first overall, our first pick last year, 7th overall, our left tackle in Ike Ekwonu. He came from NC State, and both of these guys actually spent a year of time playing together before Ike was drafted and before Zavala came to the team. So they are already very accustomed to playing beside each other. And for the film that I was able to find of them playing right, like side by side, these guys were absolutely dominant. Now, as mentioned before, he could be a significant upgrade, not only because we had injuries, unfortunately, at the end of the year to both Austin Corbett and Brady Christensen, both of our guards. There are some people that just feel like even if those guys were perfectly healthy, that Zavala may be an upgrade over each of those guys. As I mentioned, there aren't many stats to find, but this is something that this is a diamond that I was able to pick up looking through a lot of his draft information. In this most recent season in 2022, Zavala only allowed 3 hurries and 1 QB hit and 0 sacks and 422 pass blocking snaps. I'm going to read that one more time. He only allowed 3 hurries, 1 QB hit, and 0 sacks, and 422 pass blocking snaps. That is just absolutely dominant. No matter how you feel about ACC football, it is what it is. Being able to protect your guy that well, that consistently for an entire year and not giving up any sacks, that is something that any team should find attractive. And as Scott Fitterer said in his breakdown of Zavala, he had him very, very high up on his board. Zavala was very, very passionate in his desire to come play for the Carolina Panthers. He actually texted the general manager either the day of the draft or the day before just to remind him, don't forget about me. You know I want to come, which is it's a good story in itself, man. So when I look at it, this just looks like in a few years, this 4th round pick may seem to be a revelation, and he may be a cornerstone of this offense that we found in the later rounds. So I truly am I am very, very satisfied with the addition of Chandler Zavala. Vala Bill, y'all. But now we're gonna move into our final selection, and honestly, this is potentially my favorite of the day, no matter how late it came in the draft, and that is Jammie Robinson, DB from Florida State. He was drafted in the 5th round, 145th overall. Jammie Robinson is 5'11", 191 pounds, and when you look at his tape, it is easy for me to identify him as, or he appears to be, to me, as a smaller Jeremy Chinn. He just displays so much versatility in his ability to actually step back and cover in the back, as a safety, to step in and just cover a wide receiver man-to-man in nickel, to be able to come down into the box and actually blitz the quarterback and get sacks, tackles for loss. He can do it all at a somewhat smaller size, being less than 200 pounds. Jammie Robinson has been an absolute dog for what I was able to see on tape. Now, similar to Chandler Zavala and his story with Ike Ekwonu, Jammie Robinson, before transferring to Florida State, spent 2 years at South Carolina, where he played with our star cornerback, J.C. Horn. And yesterday he said that after he got off the phone with the general manager about getting drafted, J.C. Horn was the very, very first person to hit him up, call, congratulate him, and just tell him that he's happy to have him on the team. And JC took to Twitter to tell Panthers Nation that we in fact drafted an absolute dog, and I'm gonna take him at his word for that. His tape speaks for it. The mock drafts had him going much higher than this, and he is considered one of the players that actually slipped throughout the day, man. So I'm very, very satisfied with the acquisition of Jammie Robinson so late in the draft, man, as he is, as I mentioned, an absolute dog, man. So what were his senior stats? Just how much did he stand out? Well, during his senior year, he had 99 tackles. That is one less than 100. 99 tackles on the year, 5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 4 pass deflections, and 1 interception. Speaking and just validating that versatile skill set that I mentioned when I first introduced him, and just showing how much it was amplified on the field. This man was a dynamo out there, and just his attitude, the way that he answered questions, and just his reaction to being drafted, man, it was all so amusing to me, man, because we need these types of people in the locker room, man. When he was being interviewed by the Panthers media team for his post-draft, all that media stuff, he said that he's carrying a chip on his shoulder. He knows for a fact that there are not 144 players better than him. He told Ejiro Evero on the phone, "I'm ready to come in and I'm ready to start. I'm not with the nonsense. I'm not here to come in and I'm not here to do none of that BS, man. I'm here to come in. I'm ready to make an impact." You know what I'm saying? He turning up to some doggone sniper gang on the doggone IG. Like, bro is clearly he's clearly a dog, man. He instantly, man, the day that I even got introduced to him by way of just through the internet, he became one of my favorites on the team, and I'm very, 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 very satisfied with that, with the acquisition of Jammie Robinson, because as I said, this locker room for the better part of the last 5 years has been in desperate need of dogs, man, and I think that Jammie Robinson will in fact be a welcomed addition as the newest dog in the locker room, man. But with that being said, those are my thoughts on all of our new acquisitions in rounds 2 through 5, man. What grade, how do you feel about this draft overall, minus Bryce Young? How do you feel about what we did in the rounds? I don't know why I'm stumbling over my words right now. How do you feel about how we did in the rounds 2 through 5 with the players that we drafted? How do you feel about DJ Johnson? Do you think Jonathan Mingo will be able to adequately replace DJ Moore? How do you feel about Jammie Robinson, Vala Bill, y'all? How do you feel about all these guys, man? Whatever you think, leave your comments down in the comment section below. Remember to like the video, subscribe if you haven't. I am Jamario Rashad. This is the way that I see it. This is the way I see it. And I'm out. Peace.